Today we're taking a look at the DJI Mic 2. This is a powerful, brand new wireless microphone that has just been released. There is a lot that this thing can do, and today we'll be diving into the menu settings so that you can learn all of the ins and outs of how to use it to level up your content. Alright, so to kick things off, let's talk about what this comes with right out of the box. For starters, you get this soft case, and this is going to contain all of the items. Let's go ahead and open it up. Inside, you get a charging case with all of your transmitters, receivers, and adapters. You also get some wind muffs and a charging cable. Let's talk about the charging case. The case itself has been redesigned in this version 2, and it's made out of metal, it's aluminum. And it also has a little latch that keeps it locked closed. So in order to open it, simply just press this down and open it up, and you'll reveal the receivers, transmitters, and adapters. When the case is open, you'll see these little lights, and this is actually the battery life indicator for the case. In order to charge the case, you can simply plug it in via USB-C on the back. It will take about 2.5 hours to fully charge the case. While the case is open and all of the devices are plugged in, you'll actually see these little charging indicators. So the top row is going to show you a little green battery life icon, and this will tell you how much battery each of the units has. These two little white folders on the sides are actually showing you how much space you have left, how much memory for the transmitter's internal recording. So it's really nice. Right at a glance, you can open it up and see all of the battery life and your internal storage that you have remaining for all of the devices. Let's talk about what each of these devices are. For starters, we have the receiver. Right off the bat, we have a little display screen as well as this little rotating dial/button. On the side, you have a couple of ports. This red out is going to be where you plug in the cable to go into your camera or recording device. This headphone port is where you can plug in a pair of headphones to monitor your audio while you're recording. On the back, we have a USB-C port where you can connect this receiver to a computer or other devices via USB-C. And there's some electronic contacts, which is how this communicates with the case. On the bottom is a cold shoe mount, and this one is actually fixed on the version 2. So it's always attached, and it's a nice square shape. So no matter what direction you want to mount this to your camera, you can. And this little latch right here on the back actually comes off, and it reveals some more contacts. And this is where you'll be able to utilize the included adapters to connect this to an iPhone. You can simply slide this adapter on, and you'll be able to plug this receiver into the phone. Or if you've got a newer iPhone or Android or any other USB-C device, you'll be able to plug this in right here, and it will work with USB-C. And then this is just a cover plate to protect the contacts. The adapters can slide right back in here into the case, which is really nice because it keeps everything together and in reach. And we'll talk more about the receiver in just a little bit. But for now, let's talk about the transmitters. Right here at the top is the microphone, and it kind of covers the whole surface of the top. It's a larger microphone than the version 1. It's kind of got this like little grill pattern. And right here up at the top, this little circle is actually where you can connect a lavalier microphone. It's also where you can connect the wind muffs. The new design for the wind muffs has this little stem that protrudes from it. So you just line it up, push it in, wait for the little click, and you're good to go. This way of attaching is so much easier than the version 1. On the side of the device, we have a USB-C port as well as a record button. You can use the USB-C port to charge the device, or you can plug it into your computer, and it basically treats it like an SD card or a thumb drive, where you can pull off any of the internal recordings that are saved to the unit. You get those recordings by clicking the record button. On the other side, we have a power button as well as a linking button. On the back, you have a clip as well as a magnet, and you can use this to attach it flush to a shirt. To turn on the transmitter, simply hold down the power button. You'll feel a little buzz, and then the light will turn on. Right now, it's green and it's blinking, which means it's not connecting to anything. And that's okay because the receiver right now is actually inside of the case. So I'll go ahead and pull that out. And now you can see that the green light is solid, which means it is connected, and we can see that the little meters are happening from the microphone. Now there's a couple of other light indicators on the transmitter. For example, if we hit the record button, it will turn red on this side, which shows you that the transmitter is recording internally. If you press this, it's not going to start recording on your camera. It's not going to activate anything else. It's just going to start recording internally to the unit. This is great for backups. Now back on the other side, if we quick press the power button, this light will turn kind of a yellowish color. And this means we've engaged noise canceling. And we can talk a little bit about that later. Go ahead and quick press power again, and it will turn green, and now it's in its normal state. Now the other thing you can do with the transmitter is actually hold down the record button for a few seconds. And you'll notice that a blue blinking light has started. This means that the transmitter is now in the Bluetooth pairing mode. So if I go into the Bluetooth settings for, say, my phone, you'll notice the device isn't showing up yet. Well, you actually need to hold down the linking button, and it will start blinking faster, and then the device will pop up as an option. You can select it, and it will connect. At the time of recording this video, the DJI Mic 2 does not work directly with the native camera app on the iPhone, but you can use third-party free apps like the Blackmagic camera app, and it will work with that because you can choose to change your audio source. While you are in Bluetooth mode, know that it's not going to be connected to the receiver anymore. In order to switch back to the receiver, you'll need to hold down the record button again until the light appears green. And then you'll see it instantly reconnects to the receiver. Now, if at any point one of your transmitters becomes disconnected or you get a different transmitter and want to connect it, one of the fastest ways and most reliable ways to connect the transmitters to the receiver is to simply just place it into the case. When you place the devices into the case, they'll all link up with each other. All right, now let's talk about all of the other settings that you can get to using the receiver. So to get into your main receiver menu settings, simply swipe down. This is going to bring up a few icons, and you can either swipe with your finger to go and see the different options, or you can use the little control wheel, which I find a lot easier to navigate the menu. To select something, you can either touch it, or you can push the wheel. To go backwards, simply swipe up. So once you get into this menu, you'll see receiver settings, transmitter settings, and settings. Let's start by diving into receiver settings. The very first option is going to be which mode you are currently in. Right now, mine says stereo. Let's click into it. You'll see a screen that looks like this. And if you just tap where the S is, it will switch to an M, which stands for mono. And if you tap it again, it will go to a safety track recording. Let me explain what each of these are. Let's start with mono. You can think of mono as being just a single audio track. I'd recommend using this if you're going to be just using one transmitter. Mono with a safety track is essentially going to take that one audio file and split it into two. Think of it as headphones. If you're listening to headphones, you may be able to hear it in the left and in the right side. It's splitting the files, and on one side, say the right side, you're going to have your normal audio. On the left side, you're going to have your normal audio, but it's going to be 6 decibels quieter, which is just going to help give you a little bit of headway in case something gets really loud. Somebody laughs all of a sudden or something really loud happens. That extra little bit of volume could save you from peaking. And then you have S, which is for stereo. This is what I would recommend you would use if you use both of the transmitters. Say you're miking yourself and a friend. I would use stereo because you're going to end up having a lot more control in post-production. If you simply use mono, then you won't have any control. Both mics will get picked up, but they'll be on one audio file. So you won't be able to mute one or change the volume of one. It will be changing everything to both. But if you use stereo, you're going to have the left and the right channels. On the left side will be one transmitter, and on the right side will be the other. Then when you get into your editing software, you'll be able to isolate them, change the volume, mute one, keep the other, and have a lot more control. To change this in Final Cut, simply select the video file, go to the audio settings, and change it from stereo to dual mono. Then select your clip and right-click it and choose Expand Audio. This will reveal both of the channels, and you can individually click one, select it, keyframe it, whatever you want to do to fully control it. Other editing platforms have similar features. So to sum it up, if you're going to use one transmitter, usually I would recommend using mono. And if you're going to use two transmitters, usually I would recommend doing stereo. The next option is recommended camera settings. What DJI has done is basically tested a bunch of cameras and a bunch of different camera models to figure out what they think is the best preset settings for each of those camera models. So if we click into this, we'll see brand and model. If we select brand, we can choose our camera brand. For example, I shoot on Sony. And then there's the model. If we select that, we'll be able to scroll through and see a bunch of different Sony camera models. Now, it doesn't have every single camera in the world, and ultimately these are just presets. So if I select something like the A7 IV, what we'll see if we exit out and go to receiver gain, it's set it to 9. So that's really all this is doing, is changing your receiver's gain. For now, I'm actually going to leave this on none because the next option is receiver gain. And that's really all that is changing when you choose the camera brands. So you can actually select receiver gain and adjust it yourself accordingly. The rule of thumb is you want to get your camera's volume as low as possible, because a lot of times the built-in camera preamps are just not as good and they can create a little bit of hiss. So you want to work between the settings of the receiver, the transmitter, and your camera to really maximize the best sound. On the receiver, I like to try to get the audio levels where they're green, maybe just starting to go yellow at the max. And then on my camera volume, I'll adjust it until I'm seeing my levels on my camera read between -12 and -6. That's going to be kind of the sweet spot for not clipping the audio, but giving me just enough room to raise it up a little bit in post-production. Here's the settings I found that are working really well for me on my main camera, which is right now the Sony a6700. You can also check DJI's website to see if they have added any other camera brands and models. The next option is volume, and if we click into this, we're going to have the ability to change the headphone monitoring volume. So if you're plugging in a pair of headphones and need to hear everything a little bit louder, you can turn this up. This is not going to affect your recorded levels. It's just if you need it to be louder or quieter while monitoring. Next up is the power on and off camera simultaneously. We can click into this and we have two options, off or on. While this is on, what's going to happen is when the receiver is plugged into your camera, when you turn your camera off, it will turn the receiver off. And if you turn the camera on, it will turn the receiver on. It's a pretty nice little handy option to have. So I'd recommend try leaving it on and see if it bothers you or if it helps you. This setting will not affect the transmitters, only the receiver. Next up is auto off. When this is on, it will turn off the transmitters after 15 minutes if they are not recording or connected. It's just a nice little way to save some power. And the last setting option here is link device. When we click into here, we can see what devices are currently linked. If you need to replace a transmitter or you're adding a different transmitter for some reason, you can simply click link and you can hit confirm and it will guide you through a few steps to link the device. All right, now let's talk about the next section, transmitter settings. All of the options in this menu are going to control the transmitters and give us a couple of different options. For starters, we have low cut. We can simply choose to turn this off or on. Low cut is going to essentially cut out some of the low frequencies. So if you're in an environment with a lot of like road noise or a low pitched hum, this could come in handy, but personally, I'll leave this off because I like to have full control of the audio in the editing process, and I'll do those types of low cuts and EQs myself. Next up is transmitter gain. If we click into here, we'll see we have options for transmitter 1 and 2. So if we select transmitter 1 and roll the wheel or scroll with our finger, we can adjust the gain volume of just transmitter 1. So let's try taking it up to +5. We'll select it, and now we can go to transmitter 2. Maybe you have somebody who's wearing it who talks super loud. You can roll this down a little bit and have control of the gain that way. I'll go ahead and reset both of these to 0 because I've found that 0 works really well for most people in most situations. Plus, remember, you also have the overall gain of the receiver and the volume of your camera, so it's all a little bit of a balancing game. Once again, these are the recommended settings that I would say to start with because they've been working really well for me with my setup on the Sony a6700. And a quick tip, here's a really fast way to adjust either the receiver gain or the transmitter gain. Simply press in the dial button and you'll see a little yellow box pop up. And this will let you kind of dial in the receiver gain. Then press it again and you'll be able to adjust the gain of transmitter 1, and press it again and you'll be able to adjust the gain of transmitter 2. So if you notice that somebody happens to be, talking extremely loud, maybe they have the transmitter too close and it's peaking in the red, you can actually move down the gain a bit so that they can still have the microphone where it was and have a, not peaking level. Next up in the transmitter settings is 32-bit float audio. If you select into this, you can turn this on or off. I would recommend turning this on. Basically what this is going to do is when you press record on one of the transmitters, it's going to start recording an internal backup file, and the quality of it will be 32-bit float. Basically, this file is just going to have a little bit more information and be a little bit more easy to recover your audio. If it starts to peak or if it's too quiet, you'll have a lot more, wiggle room to fix the audio. But just know this is not a one button fix everything option. It's not going to instantly make your audio sound incredible. All of the same rules kind of apply. If you use 32-bit float in a super windy environment without a wind muff on, you're still going to have really jacked up audio. 32-bit float isn't going to necessarily fix that. It is super useful. It can do some really great things. It's a great option to have. But just be realistic and know all of the same rules of audio still apply. You want to try to be in a quieter situation. You want to, use a wind muff if you're outside. You want to still watch your gain levels and try to get them as close as you can because it's just less work that you'll have to do later. And remember, this 32-bit float option is only happening in the internal backup recording. That 32-bit float is not being recorded into your camera audio. So if you're wanting to just use this with the receiver and hit record and then not have to sync up anything in post, you're not getting those benefits of the 32-bit float. That's only going to happen if you're taking that extra step to sync up the transmitter's backup file recordings. Then you'll have 32-bit float. Sorry, that was a lot of technical, but hopefully it's relevant information if 32-bit float is something you're interested in. I personally love to leave this on though, because a lot of times I will use the internal backup recordings, or sometimes I'll only use the internal backup recordings. I won't even connect to the receiver sometimes and I'll just record it. Like actually right now, I'm using this extra DJI Mic 2 transmitter that came with my Osmo Pocket 3. It's not connected to anything right now. I'm only recording a 32-bit float file into this that I'm going to sync up in post. Next up is record stop lock. And this is actually pretty handy. If you click into this and turn it on, basically what's going to happen is once you start recording on one of the transmitters, say you are giving this to a client and you want to hit record and then you hook them up with the transmitter, what record stop lock means is they can't accidentally stop the recording. See, I'm pressing record right now and the recording is still happening right there. And the reason why is because record stop lock is on. So the only way to actually stop the recording is by using the receiver. Simply swipe up beneath the receiver that you want to select, and it will see a couple of options right here. And this is the record button. You click it, and the recording has now stopped. This is just a helpful option for you as a shooter so that you don't have to worry about, a client or a guest or, a person you're interviewing or a friend accidentally bumping that button. Then we have the auto record option. If you turn this on, it basically just means that the transmitters are going to be automatically recording the minute that you take them out of the case. So I just turned that setting on. We're going to open up the case and I'm going to pull out a transmitter, and boom, it has instantly started recording simply because I have the auto record feature on. Again, this is a good fail safe so that you never miss any of your audio. Next up, we have some storage information. So if we click into this, we'll see how much storage is remaining on either one of the transmitters. And next up, we have vibration notification. This is some haptic feedback. So if you turn this off, the transmitters won't vibrate anymore. Personally, I love to leave this on because it's really easy to know that certain buttons or things that you're messing with are happening. It's like a good confirmation to have. So I love to leave that on. But if you're in a super quiet environment or something, it could be useful to turn this off. And next up is the LED indicator. So if you are wanting to wear this in frame or place this onto a client and you don't want to have the little lights showing, you can simply turn this off and it will fully cut it off. And you'll still be able to pick up on a lot of your settings and indicators through the receiver itself. Personally though, I like to leave them on because it helps me as a solo creator while I'm operating at a quick glance to see if something's recording and not having to look back and forth all the time. And the next icon is settings. So when we click into this, we'll see a little brightness option. This is going to be the brightness for the receiver itself. So if you turn it down, you can see it get dimmer and brighter. Next up is language. So if you need to change that, you can do it here. Next up is date and time. So if you need to lock in your date and time, you can do that. And then you have a factory reset option. You have the current software version that you're on. Right now I'm on 4.2.1.13, so that information is there. And then you have some compliance info. So you can swipe down to get to the main menu settings, but you can also swipe up to get into a couple of extra transmitter options. And you can do this per transmitter. So if you swipe up on transmitter 1, you're going to get a few icon options for transmitter 1. If you swipe up on transmitter 2, you'll see it's on transmitter 2 now, and these options will only affect transmitter 2. So I've got both of the transmitters here, and if I swipe up on transmitter 1 and hit record, you'll notice that it is now lit up red and recording. I can hit it again to stop the recording, and that's as easy as that. Next up, I can also decide to mute it. So if I want to just mute the audio altogether, I can do that. Or I can turn on the intelligent noise canceling. So I'll click that and you'll see the icon is now changed from green to more of a yellow. If I hit it again, you'll see it change back. So rather than pressing the power button, if you want to just be able to control this from the receiver itself, you can do it right here. All right, well, that's pretty much walking through every single setting inside of the DJI Mic 2. Hopefully this has been helpful for you and has helped you kind of get to know these microphones a little bit and figure out how you may end up using them, as well as how to use them faster and more efficiently. A couple of times throughout this video, I mentioned how I like to tweak the audio in post-production. So if you're interested in checking out my workflow, you can watch it at this video here. I place links in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, stay creative. Peace!